Chelsea Sherrod here with our Nets and Patriots beat reporter Zach Cox at Gillette Stadium, and the Patriots are back in Foxborough after being in Las Vegas last week for their final preseason game of the year. And Zach, this is one of the toughest weeks of the season so far for these teams, and it's because it'll be full of roster cuts. We're less than 24 hours away from one of the biggest transaction days in the NFL. And so, Zach, Bill Belichick said that for the Patriots, at least, they've got to make at least 27 roster moves by tomorrow. What does the next day look like for the Pats?
Yeah, they're at 80 players right now. They need to get down to 53 by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Bill Belichick acknowledged there's a lot of anxiety in the building right now, just because that's a lot of grown men who are going to lose their jobs in the next 24 hours or so. Yep. As simple as that sounds, there are a lot of guys who have been here for months trying to make this team that just simply aren't going to be able to. Mm-hmm. So certainly a very anxious and nervous time for a lot of those players, especially the ones on the roster bubble.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like the Patriots have made any of those moves yet. We just watched practice, and they seem to have pretty much a full roster out there.
Yep.
But yes, by 4 p.m. tomorrow, this team is going to look very different.
Okay, and so yes, we were just watching practice, and so today, one more chance for these guys to prove themselves. They're getting back into the groove of things after their last preseason game. And one guy that we didn't see out there was Ty Montgomery. Can you give me an update on him and also any other notable absences today?
Yeah, Ty Montgomery was carted off with an ankle injury during that final preseason game out in Las Vegas last Friday. It looked in the moment like it was a pretty significant injury, just given the way he was maneuvering and the way that the Patriots handled it. We still don't know the exact severity of that. Bill Belichick gave what seemed to be a promising update, encouraging update this morning, saying that Montgomery was doing all right and that the Patriots will see how he's doing today. So it's really going to depend on the severity of that injury as to whether he's on this roster, on season-ending injured reserve, a guy that they put on the initial roster, then moved to injured reserve. A lot of different moving pieces there. His status will also probably determine whether they keep around a guy like J.J. Taylor or Kevin Harris, one of those depth running backs, for an additional body in that position group. At this point, we don't really know the answer to that. But he was probably the most notable player who was not out there today. Also, no Yodny Kajust, Patriots backup offensive tackle. Not exactly sure what he's dealing with, whether he picked something up in the preseason game the other day, but that's something we'll have to monitor as well.
Yeah, definitely a tough break for a guy like Ty Montgomery, who's been having a great camp as well. Okay, speaking of the entire team as a whole now, Zach, evaluating the state of the Patriots as they prepare for their first regular season game. Bill Belichick says you don't really see where your team is until you're about 5 to 6 weeks into the season, about mid-October. But right now, everyone's kind of like, what is actually going to happen? What are we going to see in week one? What are you seeing with the Patriots right now as far as the state that they're in? And are you confident in this team heading into week one?
Well, things obviously have not looked great so far, especially on the offensive side. There's still basically all the questions that we were asking about this offense before camp. Those are still questions, and there's even been some more that have cropped up over these last couple of weeks and months here. Bill Belichick's take on this situation isn't exactly new. This is really all the way that the Patriots typically have operated. Some say they even treat September as kind of an extension of the preseason, quote unquote. And Bill Belichick has said in the past that the real football doesn't really start until around Thanksgiving. And we've seen plenty of Patriots teams in the past have rough Septembers, go on to win Super Bowls. Those Patriots teams also had Tom Brady. And I think the confidence in the Patriots to be able to endure a slow start and then rebound and be a successful playoff team, it's just a lot lower now, just because we haven't seen this current group be able to do that. And if you look at their schedule, the back half is so difficult.
Tough.
It's really, there are some difficult games up front, especially week one in Miami, but there are some soft, winnable games in the first half of the season. You don't really see that in the second half, where they're on the road a lot, they're playing a lot in prime time, they're playing a lot of playoff teams. So if this Patriots team does start off 1-3, 1-4, 2-4, the level of confidence for them to be able to come back from that, it's just a lot lower than it has been in the past.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because when we think about last season, week 7, they went on a 7-game win streak. But after the bye week, 4 games left in the regular season, they went 1-3. And then we look at this schedule this year, just like you said, after the bye week in week 10, they've got the Bengals, they got the Bills, they got some heavy hitters in the league. So that'll be something that we'll keep our eye out on, and we can see if they will be that team that Bill Belichick is expecting them to be come midway through the season. I'm Chelsea Sherrod here with Zach Cox. Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you.